Hello and welcome back to another episode of Continental Club. Eagle-eyed viewers of Eurofootball Daily will know that Doogie is on holiday this week, but fear not. Joining us this week we have Sam Obaseki. Sam, welcome back to Continental Club, the show that separates the men from the boys at Football Daily. How does it feel? How does it feel to be back on the top tier of the YouTube content we put out?
You know what, yeah, it's been a long time, but when they told me that I could jump on, I was like, yeah man, get me involved. It's been ages. I think the last time I jumped on Continental Club, we might have been in the studios.
Jesus, really?
So yeah, wow. Yeah, so it's been quite long. I might be lying. I might go and someone might just say, yeah, you was on like 3 months ago, but yeah, it feels that long. But yeah, it's good to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
No, brilliant. Well, it's good to have you. And joining me as always, Mikey, fresh off 2 nights of UCL review.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you quickly, you know, there's a lot of talk of whether or not where the Premier League was at this year, but we've got 2 English teams in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Do you think there's maybe been a bit of like over-dramatic status when it comes to stating like English football in the game, or do you think we've just generally got the best teams once more?
Yeah, I think the Premier League is on balance the strongest league, isn't it? And I don't think that really changed this year anyway. I think there was in the first half of the season there was a lot of inconsistency, wasn't there? But that was the same across Europe. I think football's just been in a strange place, hasn't it? Quite understandably this year, and it's not been any different with English football. But yeah, like Man City are, I think, clearly the best team in Europe right now. I think as we saw in that Dortmund game yesterday, you know, like the way that they kind of came back from a fairly kind of scary first 20 minutes and just kind of controlled the game from there on in. So yeah, no, I think yeah, English football is in a pretty good place overall, I'd say.
All right, brilliant. Well, we'll get on to one of the stars of that game in a minute, because this week we're going to be looking at some of the best signings from across the season, across Europe in fact. Last week we looked at some of the worst signings and that went so well we thought we'd flip it this time around. Thank you to everyone on Twitter that got back to Mikey of your suggestions of players. We'll be calling you out throughout the show. Just a quick heads up, we have spoken about like Achraf Hakimi and Luis Suarez quite a lot on the show in previous weeks. We won't be focusing on them, but Sam, I'll come to you first, because one of the players who has undoubtedly made a huge impact this year is Jude Bellingham, to his move to Borussia Dortmund. This was sent in by @LeeMehan2. He's amazing showing in the last few weeks in the Champions League. What do you think that Dortmund have unearthed an absolute gem in Bellingham, Sam?
Yeah, 100%, man. I think the game yesterday, his goal yesterday, like proved how good he actually is. He just seemed like he's such a mature player. You could see him commanding the ball from the centre backs, from the full backs, getting forward, defending well, just being like a dogged box to box midfielder. Like, you can tell why Manchester United tried to pull up all the stops to get him. They tried to get Fergie to his house, tried to get Cantona to come and back him as well, and none of that worked. And I think Dortmund are seeing the benefits of putting 20 million on him. Like, they signed him last summer for 20 million from Birmingham, and like I said, they had so many competitors, and their project is so good for him because he knew that he would get the football that he needed to progress at the stage that he is. He's only 17 years old. Like, we have to remember, he's so young. Like, he's actually so young, and I think what's his name, Emre Can is the only player that has more minutes than him for Dortmund this season. And for someone that young as well, like I said, I think it just shows. I've got a lot of words to say for him. Like yesterday, I was on the stream. I was just saying, like, the guy is a baller. He does everything right. He just seems like he's in the right position at the right time. His per 90 stats are quite good as well. 1.7 shots, 0.8 key passes, 4.1 tackles and interceptions, 1.6 dribbles, 3.4 passes into the final third. Like, when I'm reeling off those stats, like, obviously it might go over people's head, but that just shows how much he gets involved into the game. He doesn't shy away from any challenge, and he literally only turns 18 at the end of June. Like, yesterday, he became the youngest player since Bojan to score in the Champions League knockout round, and he took the goal so well, and he was unfairly disallowed a goal in the first leg as well. And that was a testament to his work rate to chase down Ederson. Unfairly got disallowed, but he made sure that his name was in lights yesterday. Even though they lost, we definitely know that we're going to see him in the future. But what are you, man, saying? Because I know that everyone was gassing him yesterday, and it was hard not to. I saw someone compare him to a mix of Vieira, Lampard, and I think they said Gerrard as well. And I said, you know what? It's not that mad. He's only young, but still, I could see where they're coming from.
I mean, it's really pretty mad because he is so young, isn't he? So it's like at this stage when you see someone put in a performance like that, it's like hard not to compare them to greats because like Keane, Lampard, Gerrard, Vieira, like none of them were putting in performances like that in the Champions League at 17, were they? So it's like at this point he doesn't really have an equal even. Like not even like Messi or Ronaldo are putting in these kind of performances at this level. So I guess it's just like a case of like how much more can he improve in the next few years? Because it's still going to be like 2.5 years until he's 20 years old. Like unlike a lot of promising players at that age, he's first of all picked a great club to go to in Borussia Dortmund, but he's got even more game time than I think anyone was expecting. He's usurped like Julian Brandt in those first few weeks. He kept him out of the side, and Julian Brandt I think is one of the best all-round kind of creative midfielders in Germany. And he's continued to keep him out of the side recently as well. Like you say, Sam, he's just got like every element of his game is at such a good level already. And those like underlying stats that you were talking about, like, okay, they're not, they're not necessarily world class, but for a 17-year-old, they're very, very serious. And in a Borussia Dortmund side as well, which aren't performing that well this season, they've been very inconsistent. So to have those kind of numbers in that kind of side is really special, I think. And just when you watch him play, it's just, it's like you're watching a player 10 years older than him.
Yeah.
And the Football Observatory say now he's valued between 50 million and 70 million. And I don't even think, like, I know Dortmund, obviously they're a team that go for a lot of youngsters and they try to catch them young. But I don't know if they thought that he was going to bang so early. Like you said, he replaced Brandt after a few games, and Brandt is a quality player. Do you get what I'm saying? So for him to displace him in the team and keep him out of the team as well, and I even think that if someone like, he's become that player that if he doesn't play, Dortmund will look lopsided. Like, because yesterday, if he wasn't in that side, I don't see how they would have replaced him, because Emre Can's a good player, but for me, Bellingham is just, he's like the key to their system working. They were missing Sancho. Royce was a bit injured. No Hummels as well. Haaland only had a few touches, and for them to go into that game and him being the one that comes out of it as like the main man for Dortmund is a big deal, man.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm struggling to think of a teenager that young that's made such an impact. Maybe Ansu Fati last season when he burst into the scene. I was even writing about Harvey Elliott earlier this week for a top 10 we've got coming out. And even Elliott's older than him right now and playing in a lower division, and we're all getting hyped by him. So the level that Bellingham is on is just truly exceptional. Anyway, let's park him for now and go over to France, where Sam Goz has recommended Sven Botman, Mike, and I think we could all agree with that as a great inclusion.
Yeah, what a signing. Obviously, Lille are masters in the transfer market, aren't they? And they've pulled it off again. I think they sold over 100 million euros worth of talent last year. Obviously, Osimhen went for a huge fee to Napoli, and that, well, it hasn't worked out in as much as he's been injured for a lot of the season, so they haven't got their money's worth from him yet. But he does look like a solid acquisition for Napoli. But then they also obviously sold Gabriel to Arsenal for what I think was it 25 million euros, more or less. But then managed to find value in the market once again. Signed Sven Botman from Ajax. He hadn't even really played much for the Ajax senior team, had he? I think he was on loan at Heerenveen last year, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But 8 million euros, 21 years old. I think he only turned 21 midway through this season as well. He's played more minutes than any outfield player for the French club this season, and has helped the side alongside Jose Fonte, who's 16 years older than him, to keep the best defensive record in Europe. They're conceding just 0.6 goals a game this season. They've only conceded 19 in total after I think it's 28 games, 29 games. And they've just been magnificent defensively. I think all over the pitch they've had some really standout performances. Obviously, Celik at right back's been really good. Benjamin Andre has also contributed a lot defensively, hasn't he? Been one of the really outstanding defensive midfielders in Europe this term. But yeah, you can't deny that, for a 21-year-old to come into this side and help lead the side in such a convincing title challenge is very special. The XG also backs up their defensive record as well, so it's not just been a case of Mike Maignan being amazing in goal, although he has been excellent too. But yeah, Botman, what a first season in the French top flight. 2.6 tackles and interceptions. He's winning 71% of his aerial duels, which I think is actually a slightly better average than Gabriel was managing last season. He's averaging 5.3 accurate long balls a game as well, so he's got that in his locker. I think his ability with the ball at his feet is something that will probably come in the next few years as well. I don't think it's necessarily exceptional yet, but for a 21-year-old centre-back, I think he's on a really good path, and is following in the line of players like Van Dijk in the Netherlands national team as well. So yeah, really special player, and one who will obviously fetch Lille a massive profit at some stage in the next 2 years. He's already been linked with Liverpool, hasn't he, back in January? For whatever reason, they decided not to go for him then. Also been linked with Spurs. I think he would be a really, really solid signing for Tottenham, who obviously really need some authority in their back line right now. But at the moment, he just looks a really good fit at Lille. It would be amazing to see him maybe just stay there for one more season, see his value grow again, and then this is a guy who could fetch them 50 million plus, I reckon, in the next few years. So yeah, once again, Lille absolutely smashing the transfer market, and yeah, Botman looks a real talent.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, even Burak Yilmaz, 35 years old, comes in and scores goals. Jonathan David looks like he's coming good. I've got my fingers and toes crossed for them to win Ligue 1. That'd be so brilliant, wouldn't it? But anyway, we'll go in Germany. We've got another centre back who is making a big impression this season. It's Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg. We kind of mentioned him a previous week when we were talking more about Maximilian Arnold and the other players in midfield, but Lacroix, he's been a really excellent addition from Sochaux, which is the same side that Ibrahima Konate came for. Joined from the French second division. He's only 21 years old, and he's just been excellent with 3.8 tackles and interceptions, 2.1 aerial wins, 4.6 long balls, and 3.2 passes into the final third. Another French centre-back sensation. I honestly don't know how they keep producing them. It is crazy. But I mean, alongside him, they've also got Ridle Baku, who's 23. So he arrived from Mainz in Germany. He also plays in the defence too. It's worth noting that Lacroix and Baku cost a combined 15 million euros, which is an absolute snip in the market for the players of their quality. And they've helped Wolfsburg concede just 26 goals in 28 Bully matches. Only Leipzig have conceded fewer this season. Baku, he's 3.1 tackles, interceptions, 1.4 key passes, 1.4 dribbles. He's been kind of doing it all down there. And, he's second top scorer to Wout Weghorst as well. So it really got kind of something and everything in that side. So he's proved to be a really useful asset. He's assisted Weghorst 3 times this season. I think the compliment has been returned. So they have a great understanding. And, if they're going to go into the Champions League next season, which it looks like Wolfsburg are, probably going to be the only team with their current manager still in place rolling into next season. So a bit of stability there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this Wolfsburg side can do. And I reckon players like Draxler, players like Isco, these are the kind of players that maybe Wolfsburg could be targeting on a short-term contract to kind of push them on next season. But yeah, Baku and Lacroix, recommended by someone called Chris Hamill on Twitter, so thank you for that one. But if we go back to you, Sam, we'll go over to maybe 2 more established names in the world of European football, and probably for me one of the standout signings of the season in Federico Chiesa, because him and Weston McKennie at Juventus, for all the kind of stick that Juventus has been getting for their transfer policy, it really does look like these two could be some kind of gems which they've managed to unearth.
Yeah, definitely, man. Chiesa was getting a lot of love on Twitter. Obviously, we'll go into them more in the next section, big match preview. But Chiesa obviously signed on loan, a 2-year loan deal with an option to buy 40 million euros. But he already has been a big impact on Juve. He almost single-handedly got them through the against Porto, but the rest of the team just weren't up to his he's quality in that game. He's got 7 goals and 7 assists in Serie A. Only Morata and Ronaldo have more. His per 90 stats: 2.3 shots, 2 key passes, 2.2 dribbles, 2.5 tackles and interceptions. And as a forward, like, for him to get involved he so much in the game and going to a team like Juve, you'd think it would be daunting for him, you know, to be playing with the Ronaldo, to be playing with such seasoned players, but he's fit right in. And McKennie is also another player that's fit in. He signed on loan, made a permanent move last month for 18.5 million euros. And it could be another 6.5 million euros with the add-ons, but he's probably, he is Juve's most active presser in the squad. He makes 21.6 pressures. Well, he attempts 21.6 pressures per 90, and he's kind of morphed into a more attacking player by Pirlo. Obviously, I think he's one of the players that Pirlo has got right, and with Chiesa as well. He plays on the left, plays on the right as well, and as an advanced midfielder. He's got 5 goals, 2 assists in 1,280 minutes, 3.6 tackles and interceptions, 1.7 key passes, and I think he's all around energy for Juve is something that I've been quite impressed with, especially and Chiesa as well. Both of them have given Juve a new sense of life, because the signings that they've made recently, a lot of them haven't been great. You know what I mean? I think in the last few years, they've been trying to push for that Champions League title, and they've been forcing a few moves. There's people on either side of whether Ronaldo has been a successful signing for Juve, but I think Chiesa and McKennie have definitely been successful, and they will be big stars for Juve in the future.
Yeah, I've just got a real hunch that Chiesa and Nicolo Barella are going to be huge at the Euros this summer. I'm really excited for that Italian midfield. I think some incredible talent and players running through that squad. Maybe an outside shot for someone who may feature at the Euros, maybe may not, is Umar Guri at Nice. Mikey, it looks like a really poor decision from Lyon to let him go for as little as they did.
Yeah, for 7 million euros, really one of the bargains of the season. And yeah, it's unlike Lyon to let go such a promising young player for such little money. Obviously, they're very used to we're very used to seeing them hold out for bigger cash later down the line, and kind of play hardball in the negotiations, as we've seen with a player like Husamawa, who it's kind of gone a bit quiet this season in terms of being linked with the top clubs, having been top of many clubs' lists last summer. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Guri's been fantastic at Nice, hasn't he? 12 goals and 6 assists in Ligue 1 this season, 4 more goals as well in the Europa League. He's averaging 2.4 shots per game. Also got 4 goals for the French under-21s as well. So yeah, I think if France didn't have such an amazing attacking lineup already, he would be in with a shout. But unfortunately, I feel like he's just he's at some point in a very, very long line of attackers on standby, or not even in with a shout, if I'm honest. But as for Nice, they've got a real gem there. Like, Transfermarkt already value him at 27 million euros. So yeah, massive mistake from Lyon, who could use another striker in their ranks. Obviously, they're going to see Depay leave this summer. So yeah, I think Lyon fans will be thinking what a massive mistake they've made in letting him go for such small money, because yeah, they will need another centre forward in their lineup, and he has proved that he's Ligue 1 quality, that he's Europa League quality as well. So yeah, I think they made a massive mistake there, but what a season he's had.
Completely agree there. Just a couple of other names to throw out, you guys. 2 really exciting wingers, actually. Anthony at Ajax, a £14 million signing from Sao Paulo last summer. 21 years old. He's got 8 goals and 8 assists in his debut Eredivisie campaign. Loves a shot from range. Really tricky, excellent dribbler. So yeah, definitely one to look out for. Excited to see him in European competition down the line. Also, Brian Hill at Eibar. He's on loan from Sevilla, actually. And wow, he looks like an incredible young talent, doesn't he? His nickname's Little Cruyff. He completes 2.7 dribbles per 90. Ranks 7th in La Liga for carries into the penalty area. 8th for players dribbled past. 10th for passes into the penalty area. And 3rd for crosses with 84. this campaign. He's also completed 5 nutmegs, which is great fun. And bear in mind, this is playing for Eibar, who are the bottom team in La Liga at the moment. So he's really had to carry them. It looks like their 7-year stay in the Spanish top flight is over, which is a shame, actually, because it's sort of a model club in terms of how they're run. So the Minnows in the Basque Country. Sam, sticking in Spain, Barcelona, we've talked about them a little bit this week already, but if we just focus on Pedri and Sergiño Dest, because they've looked like they've been really quality additions to that Barcelona core. Certainly Dest as well, who was bought last summer, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, I think with the Barcelona project, it's quite interesting because there was a lot of talk of what Koeman can do for this side and if he's going to be successful. And obviously they didn't have a good start to the season. But I think some of his biggest successes have been the players that he's brought into the side, especially Pedri, because he signed from Las Palmas for an initial fee of €5 million back in 2019, and then he was loaned back to them. And obviously coming back into a Barcelona fold, a Barcelona team like it is now, it's not really the team that we're used to seeing. You know what I mean? I feel like there would have been a lot more pressure on him, but he's the player that's got 6th most minutes in the squad now. He's got 2 goals and 3 assists, 1.7 key passes, and he only turns 18 in November. So that shows how good he is. He's quite similar to I wouldn't say similar in the way he plays, but the impact that he's had. We were talking about Bellingham earlier, and I think Pedri's become one of those players that is becoming quite a significant player for Barcelona. I've not seen that much of Pjanic in the team, and that's because of how well Pedri's playing. On the other hand, Dest as well, he signed from Ajax, like you said, for €21 million, and he's also been very impressive. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist from right back and right wing back, and 1.2 key passes. But I think because they're so young as well, now that you're seeing them come into the team a bit more, start getting stats as well, and players like Messi and Griezmann trusting them and seeing that the quality that they have, I think the Barcelona project is a bit more exciting than it was at the beginning of the season.
Well, you've changed your tune since the podcast. That's good to hear. Clearly I'm rubbing off on you. That's good to see. All right, McCavin, just one more player quickly before we wrap up this section. Bit of an outside shout here from @Max Newman. Wataru Endo at Stuttgart. He's been a bit of a revelation too, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Stuttgart have been really solid this season, haven't they, on their return to the Bundesliga? And their recruitment has been a big part of that. Obviously, Sven Mislintat went to the club in 2019, I think it was, after he left Arsenal. Obviously, he has a great reputation from his days at Dortmund in particular. And yeah, he lived up to them. 4 of their 5 permanent additions last summer have all gone up in value, which you'd kind of expect in a side which is doing so well, but it just goes to show that they have been key players in this season. Valdemar Anton at centre-back, Gregor Kobel in goal in particular have been very good, but I think the biggest success story has been Endo. He was with them last season on loan from St. Truiden in the Belgian Pro League, but he made the move permanent last summer for just €1.7 million. What value for a player who's kind of been the bedrock of that side. He's been the destroyer in the middle of the park alongside Oral Mangala, who's been the kind of ball progressor. He's been the guy who's been excellent in the transition and getting the ball up the pitch. But without Endo alongside him, that Stuttgart side looks very flimsy, I think, because they don't really have... Mangala doesn't really have the defensive attributes needed, or at least that's not what he's instructed to do. So in order for Stuttgart to operate as they do, they really need Endo in there. And he's completing 3.6 tackles and interceptions per game. He's won more tackles than anyone in the Bully in total, and completed the second most amount of pressures in the division as well. So it just goes to show how tenacious that midfield is, and largely as a result of Endo being in there. He's just behind the goalkeeper actually for the minutes this season, which just goes to show again how important he's been. And he's valued at around €8 million, which doesn't seem like a huge amount, but he is 28, so he's not at an age where his value is going to suddenly skyrocket. But I think just goes to show how excellent that is. €1.7 million for a player who's helped keep this Stuttgart side very competitive in the league. All round great business. I imagine he'll be there for 3 or 4 years to come.
Completely agree. Got that kind of Benjamin Andre quality we were talking about at Lille, and €1.7 million. What an absolute snip. Sam, you've heard all the players there. If you had to pick the best signing of the season based off what you've heard, who would you be going for, do you think?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Because obviously, I'm thinking about where their team are right now. I would have said Bellingham, but because they're struggling in the league right now, it's not really down to him, even though he's had such an impact. But I might have to go with Pedri and Dest. Just because I feel like they had a much harder task to kind of turn around. Obviously, it's not just down to them as well. The team is doing well as well, but they played a big part in that, and now they're challenging for the title. And at halfway through the season, not even halfway through the season, after a few games, it did not look like they would do that at all. So yeah, I think Pedri's quality. Dest is definitely one for the future, and I know some of the USA fans are going to be happy with his progression as well. So I'm going with them too, man.
All right, you like to see that. All right, McCubbin slightly switched up a little bit. What about value for money? Who's been the best value for money addition?
I was going to say Pedri for just signing in general. I mean, 5 million. Obviously, that initial fee was paid back in 2019, but obviously he's only been back at the club this season. 5 million, that initial fee for Pedri is outrageous, isn't it? Because I think he is going to be a 80-90 million euro player potentially in the future. But value for money, it's hard to look past Endo, to be fair, but I think, to be honest, if Lille can actually win Ligue 1, and they've got a tough game against Lyon, I think, next Sunday, and that will probably be a bit of a decider, assuming that they're going to generally win the other games, which isn't a foregone conclusion, but they are in a good position. If Lille can win Ligue 1, then I think we'll look at this Botman signing as one of the best of the last few years. 8 million euros, he's definitely going to make them a big profit, isn't he? I think I've got to go for Sven Botman.
All right, love it. Okay, well, guys, what do you think at home? Do you agree? Let us know down in the comments. Meanwhile, we're going to move on to our big match preview. So for our big match preview this week, we could have gone to Germany, where Bayern take on Wolfsburg, and also Eintracht Frankfurt take on Borussia Mönchengladbach in a game which could have a lot of added spice due to the midweek news that broke in Bild, which we'll get onto perhaps a little later. And also Barcelona take on Athletic Club in the Copa del Rey. But this week, we are going to Serie A as Atalanta host Juventus on Sunday afternoon in a game which could be huge for the race for the top four. Just 3 points separate Juve in third, and then there's Atalanta with 61 points, just one behind. Then Napoli, 3 points behind on 59. And Napoli play Champions-elect Inter Milan on Sunday night, so the whole top four could look completely different come Monday. Mikey, Atalanta, perhaps guilty of their own success in recent years under Gasperini, because it's kind of been a mixed season if we consider maybe where we thought they might be going this campaign.
Yeah, I mean, they became everyone's favourite club last year, didn't they? And going back to that Champions League races, it has suddenly become incredibly tight. I mean, even AC Milan could drop out. I think they're already 1 point ahead of Juve. So I think Serie A, obviously, the title is with Inter, isn't it? But I think, the race for top four will be fascinating in the coming weeks. Back to Atalanta. It's been a strange season for them because they haven't mounted the title challenge, which I think some people were hoping for. Obviously, they scored 98 goals in Serie A last term, which I think is a record in the modern era at least. But they still had a very solid campaign. We need to remember that this is still a side which is, has been built on a very small budget compared to a lot of the giants in Italy and in Europe in particular. And they're still producing really attractive football and still, winning games in very convincing fashion. They've won all but one of their last 9 league games. That was a 1-0 loss to Inter, who themselves have obviously been in incredible form. And that's the only time they've dropped points since the start of February. As you'd expect, they've been scoring a lot. They're averaging 2.6 goals per game at the moment. That run has included a 4-2 win over Napoli, a 5-1 win over Crotone. They've all been pretty deserved. They've generated 2+ expected goals in all but 3 of those 9 games, which is pretty impressive considering that this run kind of started off the back of an incident which threatened to derail their season. Obviously, Papu Gomez fell out with Gian Piero Gasperini back in kind of November, December time, didn't they? That was kind of irreparable, and he went to Sevilla in January. There's still a lot of confusion over what happened there. Even Gomez has been on record saying that he's still not sure what was going on. So it's still quite kind of cryptic in that sense. Although I think there was, fallings out in the dressing room over tactics and whatnot. And but yeah, they've recovered from that ordeal incredibly well. Without their former captain, and in his absence, Duvan Zapata and Luis Muriel have just stepped up even more going forward. Zapata has 4 goals in his last 3 appearances. He's averaging a goal or an assist every 91 minutes this term, which is really, really excellent, but nothing compared to Muriel, because he continues to defy logic with his ruthlessness. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 4 starts. Which is basically just standard for him, like in any season. But he's only just played over 1,000 league minutes this term, and yet he has 18 goals and 7 assists. He's averaging a goal involvement every 44 minutes, and to top that off, like, he's only scored 1 penalty this season. It's not like he's even on penalty duty, and he's also scored 3 times in the Champions League as well. I think one of those goals was against Real Madrid in the last 16, another against Ajax in the group stages. So it wasn't like it was, all against Ferencváros or whoever. You could be scoring hat tricks against in the Champions League or whatever. So yeah, I think Muriel is just he remains. I think it's hard to call him underrated with a scoring record like that, but he is kind of underrated because no big clubs come in for him, and yet he's still. He's just perfect for this Atalanta side, isn't he? I think his close control in the box is excellent. He's just such a ruthless finisher. I think there's very few players in Europe, I think, who you want chances falling to kind of in the 18-yard area than Muriel. Ruslan Malinovsky and Robin Gosens have been key contributors as well. Gosens has 9 goals and 5 assists from the left. Malinovsky 3 goals and 8 assists. He's been, I think he's really stepped up as a creator this season. Their defence has improved slightly too. They were conceding 1.3 goals a game last term, which was by no means bad, but XG now rates them as the second best in Italy behind Juve. They're conceding 1 XG a game, down from 1.1 last term, which isn't a huge improvement, but it is a sign that this side is continuing to mature. And I think, we're talking about excellent signings. Cristiano Romero, I think, on a 2-year loan from Juve has been one of the standout signings in Serie A for me this season. One of Europe's best defenders this year in the air and on the ground. He's making 6.1 tackles and interceptions per 90, which, considering Atalanta tend to dominate possession, even if they don't so much as they did last term, just speaks volumes, doesn't it? That's really kind of that's the kind of numbers that you expect to see from someone like Wilfred Ndidi or Casemiro in defensive midfield, not necessarily a centre back, but he's been such an active defender in that back line, in that back 3, but it's just a shame because he will be missing through suspension for this game, and I think he would have been a real handful at both ends of the field against his former club. So yeah, I think Atalanta fans can be pretty happy with their season. Hopefully they'll get top 4. It's going to be tough with this run-in, but yeah, I would probably still just about back them.
Completely agree. They seem to have a really good knack at holding on to the really important players. Obviously, they did lose Papu Gomez, but it kind of looked like that was out of their hands. But players like Robin Gosens, like you said, Muriel, he's been scoring for a long time, and it is impressive that they are able to hold on to these stars, especially considering their budget there. On the other side of the coin, we've got Juventus, the behemoth of Italian football, as it were. And I mean, Sam, you never quite know what to expect with Juventus. They could blow a team away one week. They could sort of concede a goal in the last second the next, or sort of limp to a sort of pathetic draw. You never quite know what to expect from them. So, I mean, how do you see them kind of turning out in this game?
That's what I was literally about to say. It depends on what Juventus turns up. Like, since they've crashed out in the Champions League against Porto, they've had mixed form. They've played 5 games, won 3, drawn 1, lost 1. That run included a narrow win against Napoli, the 2-1, and they drew against Torino 2-2 and lost 1-0 to 16th place Benevento. So those 3 results literally show you that there's different sides to this Juventus squad, and as a lot of people feared, the Juventus fans feared as well, they didn't really know what they were going to get with Pirlo when they signed him. They kind of thought that they were probably going to walk the league again, because they have won 9 titles in a row, and it's been everything but that. And now they're literally sitting 12 points behind Inter Milan. But the big question is the manager actually to blame? Because as Mikey said earlier, according to XG and non-penalty XG, they have both the best attack and defence in Serie A. And this is interesting because they won the title last year with Sarri, and they had a worse goal difference than Inter, Atalanta and Lazio, and were outscored by every other team in the top 5. So it's kind of interesting how they still won the title last season. But they also ranked 4th for expected goals and 2nd for expected goals against, and were conceded 1.1 goals a game, and that comes down to 0.9 this term. So there is obviously progress, and you can see that in some of the players that are doing well for them this season. Danilo's been excellent at left back. He's played more minutes than anyone else in the squad, has 4 tackles and interceptions per 90, 7.2 passes into the final third. That's the best in the squad. And as we said earlier, Chiesa, McKennie have been doing amazing under Pirlo and for Juventus. And another player that also is doing well is Morata. He scored 9 goals, Chiesa has 7, and he's the side's top assist maker in the league. So it's interesting to see the fact that they've actually got players that are actually doing well in the side. But I think it's more to do with how well the other teams are doing, not necessarily how bad they're doing, because they've only lost 4 games this season. Obviously they've got quite a few draws, but they've only lost 4 games. So their inconsistent form might be down to some of their players that they expected to, bang throughout the whole season, not doing as well as they thought. One of those players in particular is Dejan Kulusevski. He's been quite quiet of late. His goal against Genoa on the weekend was his first goal since January, and he's just got 4 goals and 1 assist in over 1,500 minutes, while his shots and key passes have both fallen from last season at Parma. So obviously they thought that he was going to come in and kick on, and he hasn't really made the impact that they expected. So it's going to be interesting. I don't really know what Juve side is going to turn up, but I'm guessing with the pressure that's on Pirlo as well, if the players are buying into his philosophy, and a lot of the players that have come in and are doing well, I'm guessing they're going to try and give it their all. But it's going to be interesting, man.
Well, I'll tell you one thing Juventus do have on their side, and that's history, because Atalanta have a terrible record against them in Serie A. I mean, I didn't realise this. This is crazy. Their last league victory over Juventus came over 20 years ago in February 2001. So they did beat them 3-0 in the Coppa Italia in 2019. If we just have a look at the squad, Atalanta have Romero missing through suspension, Matteo Pezzina has COVID, and Hans Hateboer remains out of an ankle injury he sustained in January. That is quite a big miss there. And for Juventus, Bernardeschi is out with COVID, but otherwise they've got a pretty clean slate going into this game. Bernardeschi not been in the best of form this season either. Sam, I'll come to you quickly. What is your score prediction for this one?
I'm going to go with a Juve win, maybe a 2-1. I'll go with 2-1 Juve. All right, that's good. Mikey, what about you?
Ooh, I'm going to go for another high-scoring draw. It didn't come off for me last weekend just, but I'm going to keep the faith. I think Romero missing for Atalanta, big miss there. So I think it's going to be 2-2.
Okay, all right. Well, eagle-eyed watchers of Continental Club will know I'm on a 2-game correct streak. So exact score. So this is my hat trick, and
Very
Mikey's agreed to give me his
No,
mystic mantle.
I've not done that. I've not done that.
if I get this
no
one
one will
right,
ever get the mystic title.
All right. Well, I think that Juventus' victory over Napoli recently was just too impressive. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory for Juventus. Ooh. I just think Ronaldo versus Jim City in defence is not a matchup which Atalanta will enjoy. So that's my score prediction. What do you guys think at home? Let us know down below, and we'll move on to our quickfire question. So this week we're going to do 2 quickfire questions. What a treat for you at home. This is what happens when Doogie goes away. Sort of throw the rule book out. The first one comes in from @LilBebe161. And that is thoughts on Hütter, Adi Hütter, going to Mönchengladbach. Obviously, Bild broke the news that Mönchengladbach have activated his €7.5 million release clause that will see him move from Eintracht Frankfurt. Now this is interesting because obviously Mönchengladbach don't look like they'll be qualifying for any form of European football as it stands. Meanwhile, Eintracht are on their way to the Champions League for the first time in over 50 years. Mikey, are you as surprised as me at the fact this move is going ahead potentially?
Well, I don't know. I guess they activated whatever that clause is in his contract. I think he's a really good appointment for Mönchengladbach. But I'm just sad that he's not going to be managing in the Champions League, because it's the least that he deserves for what he's done at Frankfurt. He's done such a good job there, hasn't he, over the last few years. Obviously made stars out of Haller and Jovic, and has now, revived a player like Andre Silva. He's got an amazing record with attackers, I think, throughout his career. Go and check out his kind of his record at the different clubs he's been at. Almost every one he's managed to get, real amazing output from his forwards. And in that sense, an amazing appointment for Mönchengladbach, because obviously they have players like Bril Mbolo and Marcus Thuram who, have shown that they can be, really, almost unplayable up top. And I think under someone like Hütter, they could really explode, and that could end up, I think, not only getting Mönchengladbach back into the Champions League, but it could also end up bagging them some serious profits on those guys. So I think excellent for Mönchengladbach, but I think just sad for Frankfurt, because and for Adi Hütter, because he's not going to be in the Champions League next season, and I imagine Frankfurt might decline a little bit when he leaves, because he's done such an excellent job, as I said.
Completely agree. It'd be interesting to see who goes for that Frankfurt job if it does become available. Talk of Ralf Rangnick potentially being interested in that one, but even for someone like Frank Lampard, I know this is quite like a worldly shout, but these are the kind of jobs that he should be looking at, because Champions League football, really well run side, excellent stadium facilities. I still think the future is bright for Frankfurt, but for Mönchengladbach, this could be the key to keeping some of their top players, having a manager like Adi Hütter come in and try and steer them in the right direction. Sam, we'll go to you on a slightly different topic, because at the Bridge pod says, where should Sergio Agüero go this summer? Barca, Chelsea, or somewhere else? Where do you think he should be off to?
It's a tough one. You know what I mean? Like, when I saw the rumours of him coming to Chelsea, I wasn't angry, because it would be great to have Agüero. You know what I mean? A seasoned Premier League striker, Premier League legend. But at the same time, I don't know if it's realistic with the squad that we have and the way we play football. I think him going to Barca is probably Barca trying to save, not even trying to save themselves, but trying to do all they can to keep Messi, because obviously that's Messi's best friend. So if he comes in, that'll be good for him. But if Mbappe leaves PSG, Agüero to PSG would be very good. Like, I think that would be good for him. Still Champions League football, probably get a few titles there. Won't be as competitive as other leagues, and obviously he has had a few injuries over the last few years, and probably can't play as many games as he used to. So I think PSG is probably the best place for him if Mbappe leaves. If Mbappe doesn't leave, I do see him going to Spain, man. I see him going to Barca. I
agree with you. We put this out on the EFD comms feed a week ago or so, and Barca was the biggest vote in the poll that we put out, along with return to Argentina. A lot of you wanted to see that, so who knows? Well, Sam thinks PSG could be the one. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today on Continental Club. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. What are you working on Snapchat at the moment?
Doing an interesting story today, actually. It's coming out on Sunday. Ibra might be banned for football for 3 years. If you want to know more, go on Snapchat, subscribe, and you'll find out why.
Nice. Mikey, anything else to add from any scripts you've been writing recently?
I can't really think, to be honest. Nothing of note. If you haven't watched the Beneliga explainer on Football Daily, go and check that out. That's been very well received, which is unusual, because we don't usually talk about like Dutch and Belgian football very much, but this has really kind of captured people's imagination. Go and check that out if you haven't already. Go and check out our explainer on EFD on Ibrahimovic, why he's remained such a great player so late in his career, and also why France is producing so much talent. Go and show those videos some love.
Brilliant. As always, guys, make sure you're liked and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.